Hey guys, today I'm going to make a pair of end tables. The top is going to be made from concrete and the base is going to be made from some square metal tubing. I'm going to start by making the forms for the concrete tops. For this I'm using 3/4 inch melamine and just cutting it down to size. Once I have the pieces cut, I'm going to pre-drill some holes and then drive in screws to secure all the pieces together. If you want to make a pair of similar tables, I'll have a link to the plans and sketch a file in the description box below. Next I took a cutters and cut this remesh down to size. Now I cut it a little bit smaller than the actual tabletop will be, so that when I go to pour the concrete it's not going to be poking out any of the sides. Next I laid down a bead of silicone caulk on all the inside corners. I wanted the concrete to be a little bit darker gray, so I took the pigment and I added it to the water that I'll be mixing into the concrete itself. In total I only used one 80-pound bag of Quickrete's crack-resistant concrete mix. Now this is a personal preference, but if you wanted to get similar results, I think I used about half the bottle of pigment for this mix. Once the concrete was mixed together thoroughly, I filled the forms about halfway before adding the remesh. With both forms filled, I used a scrap piece of wood to screed the concrete. After that I used an orbital sander and a rubber mallet to try to get as many air bubbles out of the concrete as I could. I sank in some metal angles because I thought I was going to weld the base onto the top later on, but as you'll see in the video later, that didn't happen. I let both the concrete tops dry for about 48 hours before removing the wood that held up the angles. Then I could carefully take apart the forms and pry the wood apart from itself. As you can see, there are a lot of air holes, which means I should have spent a lot more time vibrating the concrete to try to get those out. But, oh well. Instead, what I did to fix that was I took some extra concrete mix and I sifted out all the big pieces of it. I mixed in a little bit more water and kind of created this paste that I could spread on the concrete top and kind of work into each of the air holes as best as possible. And finally I could take a Bondo spreader and kind of scrape off all the excess off the tops. I let this dry overnight and then I came back the next day and started to sand. Now this creates a ton of dust, so I highly suggest you do this outside if possible. At this point it was time to start making the metal base. This was a metal rack used for storing blueprints at our office, but we were getting rid of it at work, so I decided to take it home. Now I only had so much metal to work with, so I had to carefully lay out each piece and then come back with my angle grinder and a cut-off wheel and cut along each line. Next I came back and ground a bevel on each edge. This creates a groove for the weld puddle to lay down into rather than laying on top of the joint. Now it was time to start welding. I used the metal angles that were sunk into the concrete prior to help align the pieces together before tacking everything together. Once everything was tacked together and square, I came back with a full weld. After welding the pieces together, I came back with a flap disc on an angle grinder and ground everything smooth. Now these flap discs are great for smoothing out joints like this, and they come in a few different grits. So if you're interested in checking them out, I'll leave a link to them in the description box below. Once I had the bottom frame built and welded together, I could use that as a template for the top frame. And for this one it's just rinse and repeat. Tack everything together, check for square, lay down a full weld, and then grind everything smooth. With the top and bottom frame built, I could begin to add the legs between the two. And finally I could cut out plugs for the ends of the tubing and weld those in place. I finished the metal bases by applying a few coats of satin black spray paint. And for the concrete tops, I applied a few coats of Quikrete waterproofing sealer, wiping off any excess. Like I said earlier, I was going to weld the base to the tops using these metal angles, but in the end, I just used some adhesive to glue them together. That's it for this project. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you aren't already, hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified every time I release a new project video. You can find links to the tools that I used as well as the project plans in the description box below. And as always, thanks for watching.